Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Morena, and thanks to OML for allowing me to participate in these lectures. So yeah, I'll start with by sharing my screen. Just give me a few seconds. Okay. Okay, so I decided to make this more interactive. So I'll be just explaining mostly on the localizing climate data for business decision making, accelerating the transition to a climate resilient and a low carbon economy. So as mentioned by the first speaker, James, so it was a very comprehensive, analysis of, of course, for the Philippines, but what are the organizations doing now in terms of, action, localizing it, and then applying it also to the culture here in the Philippines. So my objective for this lecture is for me to present use cases. These are actual use cases, and these are unique use cases by the Philippines private and public sector in managing climate risk and sustainability initiatives. So I wanted to present also that the impact from that initiatives, mostly in strengthening local climate resilience, multi-hazard impact-based monitoring systems. As you all know, these organizations are already doing this. And while, some organizations are just on their study, but there are organizations that have already been implementing, these types of approach. Also sustainability data management. And this is also a new thing like climate action awareness. Later on, I'll discuss you why these organizations are doing this. And of course, sustainability reporting and physical impact risk assessments. So about Komunidad, what we do, as mentioned by Mariana. So we've been doing this. We are one of the climate tech startups, here in the Philippines, and mostly what we do is a fusion of adaptation and mitigation. Since we're here in the Philippines, we consider adaptation as advantageous, as mentioned by James. It's a very advantageous investment, not just for publicly listed companies, but of course for everyone. And we focus on the immediate climate challenges that produce real impact. So we have been doing this in the Philippines. We are also doing this in states in India. We have also been participating in a lot of global discussions within this space. So as mentioned, the reality in the Philippines is adaptation. I put it as a first priority because it's natural for Filipinos. Even before it wasn't the term yet, but it's natural to us. We are resilient. However, as technology changes, technology shifts, there's a lot of tools that are very useful for us, and at the same time, sustainability reporting, all these things. So Philippines is more adaptation and mitigation part. So a digital approach. So as mentioned, my objective is for everyone to see what the organizations are doing now. But there's a new trend that's been going on that we noticed, that companies are now adapting a data-driven and digital approach, but not just for business efficiency, for safety and compliance, but they bring this hero perspective. Most companies that are investing in these types of approach, they also want to bring positive impact to their constituents, to their people, to their planet. If it's government, they want the citizens. If it's private sector, they want their employees. So they also have this impactful approach. So we believe that in the Philippines, this combination of technology and like a new perspective in terms of climate change is very is very nice. So, but however, doing these things are not that easy. Like this is just an example of in order for you to localize the approach on a barangay level. I'm just showing you these types of data because Philippines has a lot of data. Most say that, hey, we do not have much data points, but there's a lot. But it's not. It's just that those organizations are not communicating with each other. Like we have Pag-asa, we have a lot of data, a lot of infrastructure from Pag-asa. We also have new tech like alternative radars. We have physical impact risk assessments that are in that are hard copies in PDF formats that are updated by the LGUs. And these are not uploaded digitally. We have a lot of sensor data. We have a lot of digital data. We have a lot of systems out there, but it's not communicating with each other. That's why we're unable to really like, focus on solving real solutions, right? So as mentioned, we have a lot of when you go to the LGUs, they update this every year. So they have this they call it CD DRMO plan. So they have a lot of data actually that you can use. So with the power of AI, you can actually extract this data and get that data. So there's a lot of things. I won't go through with the technology, but what I'm trying to say is, most people, like most people invest in that effort in making data inclusive and useful to industries in the Philippine setting, right? So imagine there's a lot of data I mentioned. They now build these integrated platforms and deliver the information when or where it is needed. So I won't go through with this like system architecture. But yeah, as you can see, like example, Quezon City's I Rise Up, have won awards with the DNR, and they are the only city who has invested in making a full system from adaptation to climate awareness within the barangays. Later on, I'll discuss to you how how they are doing it. Komunidad, we are tasked by the UK aid to implement this also in Siargao, the 9 municipalities in Siargao. And we also have like the private sector, what Megaworld is doing with their townships. It's also what similar to the LGU is doing with their barangays. So we also have coastal areas. Let's say in Calaguas Island, you see here the fourth one, which Calaguas Island does not have electricity, but at night. But these are the areas where it's really most vulnerable. So how are those digital tools reaching out, to these problems? Like us at Komunidad, we also serve like Assam State, 24,000 villages in Assam for a very specific problem: lightning and thunderstorm. Hundreds of people die in lightning and thunderstorms in that area every year. So we also have schools, we also have the power sector, and a lot more. So I'll now go through the real my actual session is the interactive session. So those was just the overview of my intentions, but let me share another screen. Okay, just give me a few seconds. Let me just. Okay. Okay, so as mentioned, there's a lot of data that you need in order for you to to adapt, and also of course later on do your sustainability reporting. So I wanted to give you these actual examples. First is if you're in the private sector, like what we are doing with Arise Philippines now, is applying the Sendai framework into a real solution. Gathering all the data from the public and the private sector. In the Philippines, it's very hard to gather data from the public and private sector. But of course, we are taking that task to aggregate that and bring the right solutions to. So if you're, let's say, a company managing a nationwide operations, you can see here that you can now really like go into more detail, like a multi-hazard system where you can see rain, heat index, and a lot more. You could also see like what's these data, as you can see here, for example, these lightning thunderstorm data are coming also from from the government, which also it's used by the airports, right? So if the airports, these are a bit precise data, right, in terms of operational, you could access that data and implement it to your organizations too, just like how airports are doing it, right? But of course, no one's using this data because they're not aware that this data exists, right? So what we're trying to do is to really like create a multi-hazard and an impact-based driven system, which uses the best available data in the Philippines. And so as mentioned earlier during the the case studies I presented, so this is an example of a city, example Quezon City's iRise Up system, where they have a lot of infrastructure, but they have combined it into a very very detailed barangay assessment of the risk. So these are, let's say, heat index later, there's rain, there's wind, temperature, and a lot more. So let's say, as you can see here, these are all the barangays in Quezon City. So if you're in the private sector, you could also, if you're in Bagong Silangan, for example, you could already like click Bagong Silangan and it goes through directly through that area. And since Quezon City has invested in a lot of sensors, a lot of infrastructure, modeling, and all these things, so they can now go to the barangay level. And if you see that there's red here, so they will be launching these apps that if you're from Barangay Bagong Silangan, you'll also receive these alerts on a barangay level, right? So you can also see physical risk impact assessments, as mentioned by James earlier. So there's a lot of assessments that that is available. But what Quezon City did was they digitized all these assessments, and then they have overlaid it to, for example, to the warnings that you can see. So let me just load this up. So the physical impact risk assessments are already integrated on a city level, and you could also go through you could also go through a target barangay. So if I go to Barangay Silangan, I could already also see the physical impact risk assessments, because before it was done by Project NOAA and a lot more. But here you could already see on a localized version, let's say Barangay Bagong Silangan, the ground shaking, the flood risks, long-term flood risk, flood susceptibility. You see rain-induced landslides and a lot more. So what they're trying to do is to create this one whole system, a fusion of adaptation and mitigation. So, but what they're trying to do is to make action, right? To make it more useful, right? So this is just an example, and they have also integrated evacuation status. So if you go to Barangay Silangan, you'll already see what are the evacuation centers, and it's not just the evacuation center, but the capacity of the evacuation centers. Along the way, if you're from Barangay Bagong Silangan, you'll be updated about the capacity of the evacuation centers. So you notice that they have invested in a lot of data, from scientific data, from model data, from sensor data. So these are all the sensors that they have. They have like hundreds of sensors: flood, earthquakes. They also have monitoring of these sensors. So if you're in Barangay Silangan, so you'll get really the the good models, because they have a lot of this. And lastly, you see that these are all technical, right? But what the organizations in the Philippines do is they improve risk communications. Climate change is not easy topic to to discuss. If you go to the barangay level, to be honest, let's be honest, like if you go to the barangay level, some they're not really aware of that, right? So but what Quezon City does is they create these campaigns to improve risk communications too. So they'll be releasing this iRise app system with Android, iOS, with web. So you can see all these things available to you. But they also have this climate change awareness system where, as an household or individual, you could input these are Tagalog questionnaires, like nagko-commute ka ba, or malayo ba yung trabaho mo, all these things. So you have to input it, and then it computes just for you to be aware of your emissions in an individual level. So we most cities believe in the Philippines that climate change is not like a very fast topic. You cannot like ask an individual to like, hey, understand this quickly. So they take it slow in terms of creating a new culture of climate change by doing climate change awareness first before doing any like technical climate change stuff, right? So they believe that we need to have a data foundation, an awareness first, in order for us to become more sustainable. So this is a big city, right? But how about let's say Calaguas Island? This is our project with DICT, with Calaguas Island. So if you consider private sector, Calaguas Island also has, these fishermen, fisher folks are also considered private sector, right? They have small businesses, very small businesses. They have sari-sari stores, they have shops. So our approach is mostly, an inclusive approach is very good. It's very impactful. So you can see here that Calaguas Island is very vulnerable, right? They don't have that much infrastructure, and they cannot really afford, buying systems, like expensive systems, like what the cities can afford. However, if you use the same data, the data that's available on a nationwide basis, you could already create, these things for them. So example, this is the project by DICT and Komunidad, where we have empowered Calaguas Island to have their own command center, right? So you can see here in this part of the barangay, you'll see all these things. And since there's not much internet data, so the warnings are sent via SMS. So these are in Tagalog versions too. So it's we utilize the low-tech technologies in order for it to be. So regardless of a city or a coastal area, agricultural area, so you can already use these tools, to help our citizens and our businesses. And these are also examples of like schools, for example, Cavite State University. They are the first school who have also invested on this approach. So what Cavite State did was they created this DIWA Center where they have 13 campuses, and they are now operating in a way that, to protect these campuses and students. So they have created a multi-hazard impact-based system where, if there's warning from the campuses, all the facility managers are automatically alerted. So from you can see here that also Cavite State is the first school who have implemented an alternative radar approach. So an alternative radar means, because a radar is expensive, right? A rain radar could cost $1 million, right? So not everyone could afford that. So there's a technology in Europe which is implemented in France, in Africa. They call it alternative radar, where they use technology from a different frequency, from satellite terminals, like your cable TV, your VSATs, everything. So you notice when it's raining, your channel gets blurred, right? So the loss of signal is equivalent to rain. So these have been implemented in areas like in Africa by European firms, and we're able to implement this in Cavite State. So if you can see in Cavite State, they have very good alternative rain radar monitoring systems, and they have also have per campus. They are now very equipped in terms of all this data. So it's very comprehensive. But as you can see, they also improve risk communications. So they communicate it very properly in their students. So they create programs and that more. So I just want to give you an example. For example, if you can look at way back the technologies that have been implemented in the Philippines, like Project NOAA, or if you can see how the governments are doing it, it's very technical, it's very scientific. There's no communications risk communications program in order for it to be understood easily. So it's a combination of more technology, community work, and a lot more. So now it's getting so these are examples from Mandaluyong City. So there been there's mobile apps now that's making use of that data. So here, let's say if you are let's say if you are a tricycle driver, if you are a fishbowl vendor, for example, you can just download these apps and then you can pick where you are. That it also gives you this analysis on a very simple level, right? So everyone should have all this information. Short-term, long-term data is already there, but of course along the way they're making it very understandable. So there's also apps now. Example, this is what I love. This is for Gen Z. So so this is a chatbot app for Gen Z. Mostly, you notice that the new generation does not have weather apps. They hate looking at maps, tables. So they just want for the information tools. You can see here that these are chatbot apps that deliver the early warnings through in a more unique and friendly way, right? So here it's like there's a bee because Filipinos love bee, like Jollibee. So this is a bee curb it. So in a way, the risk communications are they have invested in risk communications too, right? So it uses a more complex AI. There's enterprise AI. There's also public AI. So you get all this information, but when you communicate it, it should be very simple. Like here, if there's a typhoon, imagine in the Philippines, sometimes you don't know there's a typhoon, right? So you just know it because you see social media. But here, they say the impact to your location of the typhoon, and then they communicate it in a very, very nice way. So there's a lot of tools, right? But along the way, that those are you notice that those are short-term solutions, because the truth in the Philippines is people die with these problems. So you also need to consider that you need to also have these short-term solutions for adaptation, right? I mean by short-term is the short-term risks that are associated, but long-term risks too. So now, since you all have this data, you can now also, do your sustainability reporting. Since you have a lot of data, so we also built these tools. You notice that there's mobile apps, there's apps. So you also see that you can now do scope 1, scope 3, scope 3 emissions. So what we're trying to do is in the Philippines is you have to first consider the adaptation part to protect your people, your assets, and so on, because it's real, right? So it's not an imaginary long-term goal. So regardless of climate change, numbers, it's happening in the Philippines. Even if you don't look at the textbooks, the research, it's happening to us already. But however, as mentioned also by James, so sustainability reporting is already like getting mandatory. So most companies, so we also advocate in terms of doing sustainability reporting, and a lot more. So you can see these systems, as mentioned, is we see that this is the reality in the Philippines, where you have to first consider the adaptation part, and then slowly you go to the decarbonization part. And I think that we believe that is the right approach in the Philippines. However, it needs more, more communications, and it needs a collaboration really between the private and public sector. Those systems I mentioned to you are used by real organizations, and the good thing about that is every year it improves, right? Because they don't test it. They don't test it in like in theory. They test it on the ground. When you go to barangay, so you'll see that is it effective or not. So at least you do it on a ground level. So we believe that doing that solves the problems in the future, and we have to start doing this these implementations now in order for us to fine tune this approach. And I think in the Philippines, if we since it's natural to us that we are climate resilient, and we could be the best player in terms of globally. If you go to another country, let's say us at Philippines, imagine the ones serving a state in India are interns from Rizal Tech University, right? I mean, they are the ones helping a state in India to become climate resilient. So we have a lot of good talents in the Philippines, and we believe that this is globally we are in a way since we have experienced it, so we are best at it. So yeah, I think that's my intentions. For us at Komunidad, we love doing these things. We love working with private sector, public sector, using technology to build impactful solutions related to climate change, if it's adaptation, mitigation, and a lot more. If you have questions later, just feel free to ask. Yeah, thanks. That's just my intention is to show you those technologies. Thank you.